And hello, welcome along. This is Kathy Frey, and welcome along to this week's IMCO Maternity Natural Health webinar. And of course, IMCO is the Integrative Maternity Healthcare Organisation. And I'm very pleased today to have along Julie Gerland. And welcome back, Julie.
Thank you so much, Kathy. It's great to be here with you again.
It is very special. Julie is such a pioneer. She's an international speaker and a real expert on the lifelong consequences of early development, birth and infancy. And truly her tireless work spans over 4 decades and includes empowering not just families and professionals, but even leaders of the United Nations. So that's a story you might have time to tell us. And Julie's program guides people to transform their inherited lead into the gold of self-realization, so that they can live in harmony with the natural world and innate intelligence. Julie has won some interesting and impressive international awards, including an honorary doctorate in holistic medicines, and she's the co-founder with her husband François of the Birthing the New Humanity global movement, and APP. And so, yeah, I know I definitely want to get you to talk about that today, because it's a big deal, and that whole BirthTheChange transformation programs. Julie is a lifelong advocate for creating a thriving global family and planet, which fuels her passion for manifesting that bliss of our inner archetypal family. And the topic today, the heading that you would have seen is, how our early experiences from conception shape our lives and the world, and how we can change those. The theme of the talk, so today is just going to be a casual organic talk, a discussion, and that theme is really that we've all inherited undesirable traits and been emotionally wounded and limited during our earliest experience. And I guess unless you are living in the bliss, and you've reached your full potential, well, this topic is for us, it's for you, it's for all of us. So Julie, I know that you are a recognized global expert and real advocate for the importance of our early development, from preconception through to infancy, and how this shapes us in the world. And I have heard that you are also a 2023 recipient of the Prenatal Sciences Hall of Honor for your lifelong contribution and work. And so, look, take us back and to how you got into this field, and give us a bit more backstory, and tell us a little bit more about, as they say, who you are and what you do.
Well, we'll have to make it the shortened version. Coming up to 65, there's quite a lot of water under the bridge, as they say. So, yes, I started off, and I still am, very, very passionate about why do we suffer and why should we suffer? So what's going on here? What's the deal? That's what I was asking myself after I had had an experience of unconditional love, and an inner experience that showed me that that love exists, and that life is an incredible web of intelligence that we're all part of. And so when I experienced this at the age of 16, just, spontaneously, I said, well, if this love exists, and it does, then why do we suffer? I don't get it. So this led me around the world to look for the answers to that. And I heard a teacher say, if we were to look after pregnant mothers in 2 generations of just 50 years, we could close our hospitals and close our prisons. And when I heard that, I wept. I cried and said,
wow, that's an incredible statement. Say that again.
If we were to look after pregnant mothers in just 50 years or 2 generations, we could close our prisons and close our hospitals.
Wow.
And so I said, well, that's it. If we've got no sick people and no naughty people, then everybody must be happy and well. So I said, well, I was 22 years old and I never wanted children. I didn't want to get married. And I didn't know anything about medicine whatsoever, and had no intention to. And so I said, well, how do I start working with pregnant mothers? How am I going to support them? How am I going to find out about this? How does it work? I've been born. What about my birth? How did that affect me? So at that time, I started to ask everybody I knew, including my mother, first port of call, to say, what did you live when you were pregnant with me? So that didn't give much, but she did come up with a story about my brother. So I don't know if I have time to tell the story, but that was really my first direct connection so we're going back now 42 years. And at that time, nobody talked about this, except.
In fact, I remember, because your mum and my mum would be probably similar ages, I imagine. And my mum was born 1935. And I remember her saying to me one day, in our day, we didn't speak about our mortgage, our sex life, or our births.
Oh, interesting. I never heard that, but it's true that it was just.
I know, and it really struck a chord with me at the time, because we are the generation that do talk about our sex life, do talk about our mortgages, and definitely do talk about our births. So it was just like, it was so polar opposite.
Yeah, we definitely have come, I think, a 180 degrees from through our generation. There's been huge, huge, huge changes.
Yeah.
So
I digress. I thought that was really interesting, because it's just, it was something that's not spoken about. And now there's been research studies done, a leading one done by an old colleague friend of mine, and where because we are talking about birth now more, it's the advent of the birth horror story. And sorry, here in my mouth. And in my mother's day, so to speak, when they did not speak about birth, they didn't speak about the joy of it, but they also didn't talk about the trauma of it. But now it's almost like it's a badge of honor that you can talk about your 35-hour labor and you're this and you're that. And because I personally, as a case-loading midwife, really specialized in natural labor and normal birth, so I worked with a lot of women who that was their focus, so mine, and I would do a lot of work with them leading up to the point that could be achievable. And also my demographic was a pretty complicated one, like medically, like the woman that I would attract would be women who should not, statistically have normal births. Yet they would. And I would often have to say to them things like, when we go back to the the old antenatal classes, when there'd be 10 weeks of, I mean, that's changed a bit with COVID, but there'd be, I don't know, 8 weeks with 10 couples or something. And I would often say, I have to warn my woman that, look, I know that your birth was fantastic and it was great and it was so empowering and you loved it and it was wonderful. I said, but just know that you're probably going to be the only couple from your prenatal group that will have a story like that. And when you tell your story, everybody else is going to turn around and say to you, oh, you're so lucky. For me, I had blah, blah, blah. And I said, and I'm going to tell you, it's not luck. Like that was a whole lot of work that went in and a whole lot of preparation that went in, but leading up to creating that birth, But so we've definitely got the birth horror story that has now come in that's creating a level of fear in women when birth has never been so safe, in comparison to, 100 years ago kind of thing and beyond.
Sure, but still, a lot of people, I think it's Rachel Reed in Australia who said that there's statistically now 1 in 3 women say that they've been traumatized by their birth experience.
Oh, yeah, and
So
absolutely. I mean, when I say it's never been so safe, I mean it's never been so safe, statistically in comparison to 100 years ago and, and beyond. But yeah, our level of trauma is still crazy out there. Particularly you'll find, I guess you would have noticed it, particularly in, well, I find it comes in particularly from America. And because we've got incredibly high levels of induction there. And I'm just dealing with traumatized women all the time,
Exactly.
Yeah, anyway, I
Traumatized.
digress. I will shut up and you carry on.
Going back to my story.
Yes.
It was Thomas Verney's book, the Canadian psychiatrist who wrote the book, The Secret Life of Your Unborn Child, of the Unborn Child. And so that came out, and this was now the science. So I could start really telling women that what they were living during pregnancy is impacting the development of their child. And so that meant their feelings. And in those days, I mean, nobody was making the connection really, although it has been going on forever, because Chinese medicine and other types of integrative medicine modalities do talk about the body-mind connection. But in our Western culture, I don't like to say civilization because I don't find it very civilized, but culture, let's say.
Yep.
It's it just wasn't known. So that's how I really started. And at the time, I had a swimming school in Hong Kong, and so I was teaching children how to swim, and suddenly, mummies started to come who were pregnant with the next one, with their toddler in tow, so that I could teach the toddlers to swim. And so then I was spending the time with the pregnant mothers and teaching them to swim because they were expats and didn't know how to swim. And so all this started where I was helping them to understand and to talk, because these women had nobody that they could just actually talk to. A lot of fear, and of course, most smoked and drank alcohol and didn't know that this was having an effect. Nobody knew. So basically, I said to myself, well, how do we get this information across without causing guilt and giving mothers real choice to stop? I said, well, if I'm going to tell them that the smoking, either direct smoking or passive smoking, is affecting their developing baby, then I don't want to stress them, and I don't want them to turn into guilt or more fear. So how can I give this information and empower them? So I said, if I could say, look, this is what we know. We can't not know it. And if you would like to stop smoking, we can help you. So I put that in my mind. I said, now that makes sense to me. So over the years, obviously, I've learned how to do all these things through understanding the subconscious mind. And where do we go with that is, again, early trauma. The unmet needs of the prenatal baby, the birthing baby, the infant baby, those unmet needs, we are trying to fill up with something else. And the thing is that it doesn't work. Why? Because we're all looking for unconditional love, but not many people have it to give it. So where do you get it from, right? So I thought to my mother, well, I didn't get that, but then neither did she. So how could she give me something she didn't get? So it's not a question of blaming. It's kind of like the chicken and the egg situation. The chicken and the egg have got to change at the same time. So we, with my husband, have developed over the years a system in which people can little by little go back into their own, the messages that they have received from their parents and that have caused them to be limited, and change that. By messages, I mean the core message. Like in our family, we're always poor, or we're not smart, or whatever the message that we've received about ourselves fundamentally and about the world. And as it's just inherited, can we change it? Yes. And so if you understand how the subconscious works, then I see it just as a computer. My husband says to me, you haven't done your updates. And then when I see him or somebody else going round and round and round, it's the same old story. It's always like this. And why did all this happen to me? It's always the same. I say, well, you need to do your updates. It's a program. You're programmed, you got programmed for that. It's like a record going around. What if we can just go in there, change that program, put in something that's more appealing to us now, and it would be different. And actually, that's exactly what we do. So we can change things, but first of all, we have to know. And
yes, at the end of the day, you know, we all want to be, you know, the happy, healthy, and wealthy sort of, you know, ideal. And you sort of wonder, you know, why is there so much suffering, and do you think it all stems from early development? And how do we, as maternity healthcare professionals, translate that into, you know, what are the things, I guess, that we can do differently when we're, you know, looking after our women who are, you know, and they're going through their pregnancy and whatnot. So I guess, how do we put that into that, you know, work situation of helping to make those, you know, lasting changes for humanity? Because at the end of the day, you know, when you look around, people who have chosen maternity as their career, you know, whether they're a birth practitioner or they're a holistic healthcare provider, they tend to be people who are deeply passionate about maternity, you know, and they're deeply passionate about wanting to make a difference and wanting life to be better for that woman, you know, and especially those that are here on this platform, you know, and I mean, we do all come across maternity healthcare workers who perhaps need to move on. We've all come across some bitter, twisted old midwife or cranky old obstetrician who really should change their career. You know, but generally, and certainly everybody at the beginning of their career, I think, you know, I have this just underlying passion for maternity. You know, certainly nobody can really come into this industry for the money.
No, that's for sure. That's for sure.
So there's other driving forces. I gather it's about, you know, how we translate appreciating that environment that baby's growing in it's not just about the physical, you know, it's what's going on with that mother mentally and emotionally. And also there can be those situations, because I had that myself with one pregnancy, where there was a whole lot of stress factors that were completely beyond my control, that were, you know, that I was dealing with at the same time, you know, and we'd see that sometimes with, you know, I'll see that with women who are pregnant where, look, you know, maybe they're good, you know, but their mother-in-law's dying, or their husband's lost their job, or, you know, other stuff on the outside is that they can't not deal with, they can't switch off from it. So helping them through those times, I guess. I wonder how we translate some of that.
This is actually all covered in our program.
Right.
So that we have these tools for life, because nobody equips us really with how to deal with our emotions, how to change our subconscious programming, how to step into our power, how to transform stress. So all these things that we have, we're carrying with us. And in fact, everybody we're coming into contact with, they say 97% of all communication is nonverbal.
Wow.
So we're passing on what we've lived, which is making up who we are. And so even if we don't say anything, we are influencing each other. So yeah, I just like to, so stress is really, and fear are the major factors. And where do we get this? Because of our own experience. So if deep inside ourselves, we've had a scary birth, or we almost died, or our mother almost died, or something happened, then unconsciously, we're always thinking that birth is a risk. Why? Because we have that experience that it is. So I'd just like to share a little story with, because I think it illustrates what we can do. I gave a workshop. Thank you. I gave a workshop in a maternity hospital in India. And there were about 75 obstetricians, nurses, childbirth educators, etc. There are no midwives in India as such. And the next day, I was carrying on giving the workshops. And the director of the hospitals, there's actually 3 maternity hospitals, came in and said, Julie, before you start, do you mind if I share a story with everybody? I said, well, of course. So she said, well, after your workshop yesterday, she said, I was in the corridor and she said, I watched this happen. She said there were 2 women obstetricians and they were talking together and obviously quite upset about something. And they were just about to go into a birthing room where a mother was giving birth. And so as one was about to open the door, the other one stopped her and said, oh, you can't go in like that. And she said, why? And so the other one said, but after what Julie told us in the workshop, she said, your stress will affect the outcome of the birth. And so she said, oh, yes. And so there, the 2 women, the 2 doctors stopped, closed their eyes, transformed their stress into oxytocin. And when they had a nice smile, feeling connected, feeling love, they then went in. And Julie,
oh, yes. I love that. That gives me goosebumps, actually. That's so huge.
Just exactly. So if you think of all the ramifications of that,
yeah, yeah. And I've absolutely seen probably the 2 commonest times I would have seen equivalent of that is when the labor is just going swimmingly. She's in a great place. He's in a good place. Like everything's going well. And then one of their family members turns up.
Yeah.
Typically her mother or his mother. And comes in with their anxieties and their fears. What's going on? Why is she like that? Blah, 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 and it completely impacts the room and her dilatation slows down.
Of course.
Because now the woman is worrying about her mother, worrying about her.
Exactly.
So I've seen it in that situation, and the other time is an obstetrician coming up.
Yeah, exactly.
And like some of them, oh my God, you just want to strangle them. We're like, fortunately, I practice I did practice in New Zealand, and So here, midwives are in charge of their women's labours, and obstetricians are invited into the room when they're needed. They're not an entitlement, but you don't get to choose your obstetrician sometimes, right? It's whoever's on
that day. Exactly.
So you've worked really hard to turn this clinical birthing room into an environment for birth, so the lights are dimmed, and there's some aromatherapy going, and there's lovely gentle music in the background, and the obstetrician walks in, and the first thing they do is turn the lights on. And you're like, you don't even need the lights on to do what you want to, like, why are we got, but it can take hours
to get that back again.
To get it back. And sometimes it's you never do. Because that creates a fear in the woman that becomes irrecoverable.
So I think that if all the women, which is our case, because we teach our couples, we teach both of them, so the fathers and the mothers together, and their job is actually just to stay in oxytocin. And so they know what oxytocin is, they practice it, and it's something that is just as you can frighten yourself and create secreting adrenaline. We all know that. You start imagining some horror movie and you're going to start, secreting adrenaline. Well, we can also all secrete oxytocin at will. And so once we have control over that, we know how to do it. And as these two groups of hormones are antagonistic, you can't have both at the same time in your body. It's one or the other. So this is one of our empowerment tools for life. So during pregnancy, obviously, that's really important for the mother to be able to stay connected, bonded, in love with her baby. And she's teaching the baby that love is really what it's all about. And so when you're in love, you feel connected. Connected with what? Connected with everything that you want to be connected with. Happiness, beauty, well-being, health. And so these empowerment tools are really important. But it's also really important that healthcare providers are able to go back and change their early trauma. So this can be from conception, it can be during pregnancy, it can be during birth, it can be in infancy, but all that period, which sets us up for life, as long as we haven't changed that, we might try to patch things up, but we'll never get to the root cause. We know now that if somebody has a disease at the age of 50, there is a prenatal component to that. Okay? So
tell us more about that. That's an interesting comment.
Well, everything our body is being formed, our emotional body, our nervous system, our brain is all being formed, right? From conception, actually before conception, but just for the sake of ease, we'll say from conception. The body is being formed, the bodies are being formed, because we have an emotional body, we have a mental body, right? So if the mother her health is compromised, she goes through a lot of stress, or something happens, she gets the flu, whatever, during the time that organ is being developed, that organ's strength will be compromised. So it could be the lungs late in the pregnancy. It could be the heart early in the pregnancy. So if you really look at a woman's journey with a microscope or to see what was actually going on, you can tell basically the future of that child.
Mm.
So this is where it's really, really very interesting. But the consequences for us all is that we have these programs, we have these traumatisms, we have all the things that our parents were living that has been hardwired, downloaded into our systems. And so these are just constantly playing automatically. And we think, well, that's just how I am. Well, it is how you are, but what goes in comes out. So just as you said, it's not by chance. You know, mums and dads used to say to me years ago, oh, I'm so lucky that, you know, we have a child that doesn't cry. I said, stop. There's no such thing of luck in this. It's what you put in is what you get out. So this is where future parents need to be empowered, but also anybody working with maternity also. And so that they're not bringing along their own trauma.
Yeah,
their
because
own
I mean,
limitations.
clearly everybody in maternity is naturally a healer. You know, that's why they're in that field. You know, what do they say? Everyone's a helper, healer, comforter, or teacher. Those are the sort of our archetypes or whatever that we fall into. But it's really what you're saying is that we need to heal ourselves first to be
Exactly.
in a better equipped. Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. You know, I guess, you know, you're talking about that sort of, you know, that family blueprint archetype sort of
Yes,
situation. Um, sorry. And
exactly.
you know, and you're talking about emotional wounds, I guess. And how do we know we are emotionally wounded, and what steps do we take to heal them? So, you know, we're so in the role in maternity of it's all about the client, you know, it's all about the patient. And I would say as a 24/7 on call midwife, you are the epitome of the giver, where you are pushing yourself and your own tiredness and busyness and everything else, and your own family, you know, off to the side. Your own physical wellness, your own nutrition, everything gets pushed to the side when you're a 24/7 on call midwife. Like it has to. It's the only way that you can be available, you know, when you never know when that phone will ring you in the next minute or not. That you have to drop everything and go. And I think that I've certainly seen a lot of, you know, midwives will burn out eventually. There's only so long that's sustainable. And sometimes, you know, you do come across a midwife who has been 24/7 on call for something like 20 years, you know, and you're just like, wow, you know, how? How did you manage that one? Incredible. But typically, when you look behind the scenes of that, that's all there is. And her children are grown, and I mean, I'm being very stereotypical, but usually there's a broken marriage, and um, and not such great finances, and discontent with relationships with children. Like it's become everything. It's become all there is. So finding that work-life balance in this industry can be quite challenging for some. I mean, it's easier if you are, you know, if you do set hours, or you say a shift working, and, you know, and you've got the time you're at work and you're with your clients and the time you're not, and you can create some work-life balance. But particularly with the 24/7 on call, you know, self-employed midwives or independent midwives, that's a
It's
tough one.
a real challenge. So,
Yeah.
but it's not impossible.
No,
And
it's not impossible, but boy, it's definitely, you're not making life easy for yourself.
if you have the tools, you know, it's like anything, you know,
Yes.
if you have the right tools and you know how to use them, then things can be very different. And this is why I'd like to bring in the archetypes.
Yes, talk to us about that.
Because you just mentioned the healer. What did you say? The healer,
Helper,
comforter.
healer, comforter, and teacher.
Yeah, so these are archetypes, right?
Mm.
And so when we talk about these, we know what we're talking about. And we know what a teacher is. We don't need to discuss it. We just know, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we should know what a mother is. And we should know what a father is. But do we? Because
it's a bottomless pit of all variations on a theme, from
exactly
amazingly fantastic to diabolically terrible.
Because we have an experience of our parents. So if we had a father, for example, who was very absent, what is that father for me? Or what about a mother who didn't support us, didn't even like us? You know, so people say to me, yeah, but all mothers love their children. I beg to differ. No, they might say that, but what is love? How many parents are narcissists, are not thinking about the child, thinking about themselves? So our idea of what a mother is passed on from generation to generation, because that's what we know.
The blueprint.
The blueprint. Now,
yeah. And I would certainly see with mothers who had a pretty shite blueprint that they grew up with. So if they came from a place of extreme dysfunction, and they recognized that, they knew it, they had a terrible mother, and they would offer, because they had no blueprint of what a good mother was, they would often, I would see, they found it really hard to chillax, to chill out and relax. Like they would be sort of obsessed about the perfection. Whereas when I would see mums say, for example, where she's just got the most amazing mother, and her mother's so chilled out, and her mother had 8 kids, and it's all great, and the mother's there, and she's telling you can do it, darling. Everything's easy and a breezy and relaxed and not a problem. That then the new mother, the daughter, she's like that too. And yeah, whereas those ones that don't have the blueprint of a good mother, it can be really hard for them, because they're having to create their own blueprint, and I would see them in that postpartum period where they're just freaked about everything. Is this all right? Is that okay in the baby? And look, there's this rash, and I'm really worried about that. And is that a good latch? And like everything's a stressful, upset, worry, because she doesn't want to be like her mom. She wants to be a fantastic mom, and she's just never seen how that's done.
Exactly.
Really
so how can you be it if you never experienced it?
Yeah.
So this is where the archetypal parents, which are inside us all, are absolutely essential. So that, why? Because an archetypal mother, which we have inside us, somewhere we know what a mother should be. Where do we get that from? Why? Because that little part of us, that inner child, that little baby us, who still lives within us, is still longing for that unconditional love that perhaps we never got. And where are we going to get it from? Will we get it from a spouse? Will we get it from here? Will we get that recognition? Will we get that look from a mother who just says, I'm so proud of you? And so we're constantly looking for what we should have got right at the beginning, that we're wanted, that we're unconditionally loved for who we are, whether we're a boy or a girl, whether we're like this or like that. And we didn't get that. Most of us haven't. Why? Because most of our parents hadn't. Okay. So we're in a long chain. And so we need to say now, the buck stops here. We've gone too far. Look at the world. Look at, the rising everything. Crime, violence, health problems in children, younger and younger. I mean, we're just off the charts. We're totally unsustainable. And so we have to, as a generation now, say, stop. This has gone too far. We now need to regenerate humanity. And for that, we have to connect with the archetypal mother and father within us. So that we, all of us, because if we want to help, we want to be a role model, then we've got to do it for ourselves. That's the first thing. And when we get...
Yeah, like address ourselves first.
Exactly. So when we really
that big
get...
message. And I know that we can't possibly try and condense in here everything that you would speak about with your, when people attend your courses and whatnot. But I guess could you kind of give us a little bit of an overview of the steps that we need to take to heal ourselves, to be in a better place, to be more equipped to, be able to be in that maternity healer, comforter, teacher role that we all take on?
Yeah, it definitely is. We just talked about it. The first one is to really understand the role of stress and fear,
right?
And be able
So
to
that's
stop
number
it.
one, understand that
Number one.
role. Not
Because
just we understand that role in our pregnant woman, but we understand that role in ourselves. So
exactly.
yeah, as you say, that's the obstetrician has just dealt with, or midwife has just dealt with some issue and then coming into the room not really in that
Exactly.
place. So step one,
And to really be able to at will change like that.
right?
And you
Okay,
absolutely. So
yeah,
we teach people how to do this.
like
So
that. What would the next step?
once they get used to that, just to say
Yeah.
that becomes our new default setting, is that we
Nice.
end up living in love and oxytocin because that's just our natural setting now. So we have to wean ourselves off adrenaline and stress because it is addictive. And most of us are addicted to it. You take it away from somebody, oh, you don't need to worry about that. They'll find something else to worry about because they're addicted to this, to this hormone, which is a strong drug. Okay. Yeah. So we have to wean ourselves off that and onto oxytocin.
Yes,
So,
because when you look at a birthing suite situation in particular, there's I always have sort of had the opinion that there are 3 adrenaline junkies in the hospital, and that is emergency department staff, anaesthetists, because they take people to near death and back, is routinely part of their job, and birthing suite staff. And anybody, like when you've got midwives who much prefer, say, the maternity ward or they're not, but you get there's a breed of midwives who just, the birthing suite midwives. Don't put them on the maternity ward, they'll get bored. They're the birthing suite midwives, and that's where they love that adrenaline. And as I say,
it's exactly the place where there should never be any adrenaline.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot.
Exactly. So this is what we really need to change.
That's so fascinating looking at it from the perspective.
Exactly. And so the next one, and you've brought this up already, is relationships. So why? Because it's probably the number one stressor. What gets us upset? Our husband because he left this or that, or the postman who didn't do this, or it's relationships. So how can we have tools that can heal relationships, heal communication, because relationships are built on our communication, how we relate to, how do we communicate with people, and how we can bring difficult situations back into unconditional love. So that we have specific tools which everybody can learn. It's very easy. Kids can do it. And again, it's just practice. So once you've started practicing it, your relationships are all, basically hunky-dory.
You want to, when you talk about, you've got some specific tools. Do you want to give us an example of one?
Well, I can give you one. Yes, exactly. I can tell you the story of, we taught this in Africa to 22 midwives, and from all ages, young midwives up to the oldest one was 75, I believe. And so we gave a very short course, and the next day they came back and we said, does anybody have any questions or anything they'd like to share? And a young midwife put her hand up and said, yes, I want to tell you what happened. So I said, go ahead. So she said, you taught us what we call quantum communication. And so she said, to help with a relationship problem. So she said, so I went home, and what happened is that my husband, she said, has gone away, and he told me he was going to call me every single day. And she said, he's gone. He hasn't called once. I don't know if he's alive or dead. I don't know where he is. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if he's coming back or not. And I was feeling really, really angry. So I didn't know what to do about this. And she said, you gave me the key. So what she did was, this is her story, okay? So it's not exactly what we told her to do, but this is her story. She said, I got out a white towel that he uses and I put it on the bed. And she said, and now I started talking to him. And she said, I told him everything. We were talking in French, and the French have a saying which is "J'ai vidé mon sac," is I emptied my bag. So I gave it to him. I told him everything that I wanted to tell him. You don't respect me, and this is in Africa where it's not that easy for a wife to talk to her husband like that. She just let it rip. You don't respect me, and you said you would call me, and I don't like this, and I'm really upset with you. She just went for it. And as she was doing this, the phone rang, and it was him. And because she was like really into this thing, she hadn't finished. There was still more in there that had to come out. He called, and instead of saying, "Oh, you're there, how fantastic!" No, she carried on. And she said, you said you were going to call. And he hung up. And she said, well, I hadn't finished. So I went back to the white towel and I continued. And everybody was like looking like this because, again, African women, there's quite a lot of domestic violence, and women don't have the right to speak to their husbands like that. And they can be just put out of the house, right? So everybody was hanging on, And then she said, I carried on, and finally I've just finished, and the phone rang again. And it was him. And he said, please don't hang up. I realize now that I said I would call you, and I didn't call you, and I wasn't very respectful, and I'm asking for your forgiveness. And everybody in the class, what? And so this is just one tiny little example of using quantum communication, which can be used in many, many, many arenas of relationship, and is very powerful, very easy to do. And once we've learned really how to do that, our relationships are completely transformed, or can be if we use this. So that was really the importance of learning how to be authentic, learning how to say what we really mean, and not say one thing and feel another. And why do we do this? Because we learned when we were a child that if we told the truth, we'd probably get, hit or sent to bed without dinner or something, right? Because, well, we would have had a parent probably who said, oh, you can't possibly be sad, you have everything, or, we weren't allowed really to speak up and to be authentic. Why? Because they're not either. So we all, practically everybody, lives in these two worlds. They have what they really, really think inside, hidden down deep. And then they just tell everybody what they think everybody wants them to say. And because like that, you're socially accepted. We talked with some of our students the other day, and they were talking about being able to say no. And I said, that is huge. So just being able to say, no, I'm too tired, I don't feel like it, without having to make an excuse. You are enough. So relationships is a big package. And then we go back to change, as I said at the beginning, the message that we got from our parents about ourselves and about the world, and put in what we would love to have heard, and make that now our message. And we connect with the archetypal parents inside ourselves. So that inner mother who can always be there for me, 24/7. And she can give me now what I always needed to have. To be wanted, to know that I'm good enough, that I'm loved for who I am. I don't have to succeed at something to be loved. And to receive tenderness and care. And so we talk about, self-care. It's very difficult because, again, if you haven't had somebody who's given you that example, but with an inner mother, it's not even self-care. Your mother is caring for you. And that's what we should have had in the beginning, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's that unconditional love rather than love being bestowed on the condition that you are blah blah blah. And I think we, that a lot of us will have experienced that sort of thing growing up, but we can do it to ourselves, right? And you love yourself so long as you're this weight or doing these other things, and it's that having that unconditional love for yourself,
which is exactly what the archetypal mother can give you.
Yeah. So we're getting close to time here that we'll need to wind up, but I know that you sort of have talked about living in the bliss and reaching our full potential. Maybe as we close here today, do you want to explain a little bit more about what this is for you and how we all can live this way? And also please include your contact information as well, for anybody watching this, now, currently live or later down the track from our IMCO library.
Fantastic. Absolutely. So how can we live in this bliss is when we really claim our real inheritance from our real parents inside ourselves. So we get to experience the unconditional love for ourselves, and we get to experience the strength and guidance of a father who's always there for us, who's always whispering wisdom and guiding us and working, being there for us so that we can reach our full potential. And that's what parents are meant to do, right? That's their job as a parent, to see that their child gets to reach their full potential. And so when we get this, then actually we end up living in bliss. We get everything that we needed. And I'd just like to talk about breastfeeding. So what we found is that many of us who've not been exclusively breastfed or had some kind of challenges with that as a baby, us as a baby, have not fully understood in our hardwired nervous system that everything that I need exactly when I get exactly when I need it. Because the mother's milk, as we know now, is actually changing and adapting to the baby's need right within the minute.
Yeah.
Okay, the mother's, she's building the antibodies that will help if there's any kind of bacteria or whatever. Her milk will adapt to the exact needs of her baby. So when the baby receives this fully, what is the message that we receive? Everything that I need comes to me easily and effortlessly, simply because I'm loved. So what if we were all to live in that? Everything I need, I mean, isn't that bliss? Everything I need comes to me easily and effortlessly, simply because I'm loved. And so no more
Almost as a
struggle.
mantra. It's lovely.
So no more struggle. It's just the universe knows me and gives me exactly what I need when I need it.
That everything is always working out for me mentality.
Yeah, but it's absolutely coming to me. You know, it's all coming to me exactly what I need, not to the next person or here or there or whatever, to me. And so when we actually live like this, it's just, you get to be authentically who you are, unconditionally loved, connected because you live in oxytocin, connected with everything, able to speak with quantum communication with everyone at any time, wherever they are in the universe, and get a reply, and you're free.
I love it. It's just beautiful. So please, Julie, just go over your contact details before we wind up.
Sure. So our movement is Birthing the New Humanity. And we're still working on the new website, but you could go to birthingthenewhumanity.com. And you can also download our app on the Android or Apple Store, Birthing the New Humanity with big B, big T, etc. And you can get a free membership. You register. And there is content in as soon as you download the app. We are now filling this up. So if you are a birth provider, then you will be able to list your services in our directories very shortly. So if you are actually registered, we will be able to send you a notification when this
that's
is
great for the members to know. So is that for just birth practitioners, or is that birth practitioners and sort of other maternity related?
absolutely
it's for everybody. That's yep. Okay, fantastic. Cool.
Everybody. So this, and we will actually be able to offer that somebody will be able to have their Calendly, so that people can actually book a session directly on the app with that provider.
So they link their calendar to it as well.
Yes. So
fantastic.
All this is now just being put into place. So there'll be many things that we have podcasts, so that if anybody would like to be a guest speaker on the podcast, such as yourself, if you have a course that you would like to run, we will have courses on the app and many other things.
Oh, that's very exciting. That's actually something that, I mean, we obviously need to talk a little bit more, but we could potentially, I divert the topic, but we can potentially be putting that on our e-newsletters and whatnot, out to our birth practitioners and maternity health providers of all the different modalities. It is about making ourselves and making the woman realize that, people exist and services exist. That's very exciting. And what about health practitioners who may want to look at investing in doing some of your training?
Yes, absolutely. The best is, again, on the app, there is under courses, something that says BirthTheChange, and that is coming soon. So if you're registered, then as soon as this is available, we're actually teaching it in French at the moment. I live in France.
Right.
But we're starting up in English very soon. And you will be invited to join us and to learn more about it, and other courses as well.
Fantastic. That's great. So birthing the new humanity, easy app to be looking up.
Yes.
And I guess that they can come to your website as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's fabulous. Well, thank you so much, Julie. It's just been wonderful to have you back here again. And before we wind up, is there any final thing that you're wanting to say?
I would just like to say, if you're working with pregnant mothers, you are doing the most important job in the world. And you need to be honored for that, because this is how we will change humanity. And you're on the front line. And so give your love, but don't burn out. Make sure that you're connected with your inner parents so that you get filled up, and then you can give out of what you have, and not, kind of keep giving and not being filled up.
I love it. Thank you so much, Julie. And thank you to those who are there live today. We always love having some live audience. And we know that many of you are watching these webinars down the track. So thank you, everybody. And we'll
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kathy.